It is Friday, September 22nd, 2023. This is another edition of Football Today. That is Bobby Skinner. You know him from the Talking Giants world. I am Chris Rose. Producer Mikey along for the ride as well as we get you going to a full weekend of football here in week 3, which started actually Thursday night. Bobby, with your Giants. Like, do you have a sleepless night after they lose on a Thursday? Because I can tell you as a Browns fan, that's pretty much, it ruins my football weekend. I got to be honest.
Well, yeah, and it's like we have to do the pod afterwards, and we don't do instant reaction pods because we like, hey, make sure you're as level headed and everything is right as possible. So we're up to like 4 in the morning, and then it's like get up at 7 because hey, you gotta get ready and get social media ready for the next day and stuff posted. So those are sleepless days, and the Giants have been horrible in prime time since Eli has been gone, which makes every primetime game you just kind of almost dread it from a covering the team standpoint.
Okay, well, let's try and cheer you up, okay? And we'll talk about some other things outside of the Giants, but we'll start with the Giants. And actually the team they lost to, who, in my opinion, is the best team in the NFL, and that would be the San Francisco 49ers. Listen, they've won, it's 14 in a row, right? Overall, regular season games, 13 or 14. Whatever it is, Purdy's now 8-0 as a starter. He's been very good. Nobody is going to call him an elite quarterback. Because of that, is Kyle Shanahan the most valuable head coach right now in the NFL?
I still think Sean McVay is one, but the 49ers, what Shanahan does, and Purdy deserves credit, right? Like, if you guys watched the game, obviously everyone watched the game last night. It's very weird because he has misses, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he always makes the right decision. Like, he's always picking what the defenses are giving, and I just think like what Shanahan does is makes it easy for guys to do that. Just like, hey, just trust your eyes, stay on time. Where they throw, like, you see all the motion, you see Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, all over the formation. And then you see like the Giants got them in 3rd and long consistently, right? And they just they gave up 2 screens on 3rd and 15 and 3rd and 13. And some of that was like the brilliance of Shanahan, where you line up with like a tight end and the fullback, and you're thinking, okay, they're going to try and run some, like max protection. No, they motion the fullback out, and everyone is able to block well and get a screen. So obviously Shanahan's great. But I do have McVay as more valuable over him in the league, but that's just because I think McVay is so great.
I'll tell you this, man. Kyle Shanahan has never had anything close to an elite quarterback. And they have always been among the best teams in the league as long as Jimmy G's been healthy, and now that they have Brock Purdy. I mean, it's amazing that all you need to be a Super Bowl contender with this organization is either Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy. Just for a second, just say that out loud. Isn't that kind of wild?
Yeah, but I will say, I mean, they have all pro talent across the roster, like every single position.
Yes.
Ayuk didn't play last night, but you have Ayuk and Debo, who are both those guys. Kittle's an all-pro. McCaffrey might, is at least top 3 at minimum. Some people think he's the best back in the league. I'm kind of in on the Bijan hype train. You've got the best left tackle in the game in Trent Williams. And then defensively, you have the defensive player of the year. You have the best linebacker in the game in Fred Warner. You've got, their safety, Haufunga, was all-pro. So they just have, and that was like, from the Giants' perspective going into this game, it's like they're just way more talented than us in every position. Oh, and like you said, they are very well coached where, I talked to, it's like you have Juszczyk, Kittle, Ayuk, Debo. Those guys are all pro in the receiving game. Well, they're also all pro in the running game too. Like Kyle Shanahan, he makes his wide receivers block. They spend lots of time making their wide receivers block, and that's why they have runs that pop off for big games, is because those guys are blocking. Their tight ends blocking. Juszczyk is like very under. I mean, remember the story that came out that Juszczyk was reading defenses for Jimmy Garoppolo? Like what Shanahan's able to do and get the most out of everybody is nothing short of fantastic. They just kind of he's gonna have to win a Super Bowl for people to put him as the guy in the league. It's just kind of the way it works.
Well, see, but here's the reason I think that he is, if you were to have a coach's draft, I think that right now he's number 1 off the board. You say, they have all this amazing talent elsewhere. The only reason that they can do that is because they don't have to pay their quarterback $40 million a year. right? Even when Jimmy G was at his top dollar, you're talking about low 20s. And that allows you so much more financial flexibility to keep guys around that you want to keep, or to bring certain guys in like a Javon Hargrave or whatever. I mean, shit, they're paying Brock Purdy less than $1 million a year. The guy's got a freaking roommate. How many quarterbacks in the NFL have a damn roommate that they're not married to?
Yeah, but I do think Brock Purdy, like even back at Iowa State, it was like I remember I wasn't watching him specifically, but I love Charlie Kohler, their tight end. You had
Sure.
Hutchinson and then Brees Hall. So you watch that offense, and he knows how to operate an offense. His shortcoming is that he misses throws sometimes, right?
He was the last pick of the draft, though, Bobby. There's not one person who watched him play in college, even though he had a ton of starts, and went, that's an elite dude. He might end up being a Pro Bowl quarterback, but nobody, once again, we do this almost every show. 1 through 32, line up your starters in the NFL. When is Brock Purdy getting drafted for your team?
Oh, probably. I mean, somewhere in the top 15, I'd say. But at the same time, go 1 through 32 through every other position on team. The 49ers are one at a lot of spots. They're one at left tackle.
But at the most important spot, we just kind of go with San Francisco because of their coaching, in my opinion. We go, okay, well, he's good enough. He's good. Now, there's certain guys that weren't good enough, right? Nick Mullins couldn't get the job done there. C.J. Beathard couldn't get the job done. Shanahan had a terrible record if it was anybody but Jimmy G.
Let me ask you this. Do you think Brock Purdy is like significantly better than Jimmy G? Because I do.
I need to see it late in games. That's where Jimmy struggled when they needed a big drive. For the most part, he had one regular season drive against the Rams that I could remember to get them into the playoffs that year. And that's the only one that sticks in my mind. So I need to see more out of Brock Purdy in crunch time when they're down 4. Can he get a touchdown with 2 minutes to go?
Yeah, I do. I think Brock Purdy manipulates the pocket better.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they're like, oh, well, they've won with Jimmy G. I mean, that Super Bowl run, I think they threw the ball less than 20 times on their way to the Super Bowl. Like it was one of my favorite games ever, that game versus the Vikings, where it was like, it's the brilliance of Kyle Shanahan, where he's like, they just stopped throwing the ball. They just ran it play after play. And I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And like you said, it speaks to the brilliance. But I do think Purdy is a decent, like a pretty solid upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right, let's move on. The defending Super Bowl champs will welcome the Chicago Bears into town this weekend. Chicago 0-2. Justin Fields may have lost a little respect this week, depending on how you see this. He said that he's thinking too much instead of just playing, and it led to this exchange with the local media.
What do you think was causing you to think so much, maybe think too much?
Could be, coaching, I think. But, at the end of the day, it makes it, they're doing their job when they're giving me, what to look at and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I, can't be thinking about that when the game comes. I prepare myself throughout the week, and then when the game comes, it's, it's time to play free at that point. So, just thinking less and, playing more.
All right, so later in the day, he then had another kind of mini press conference in the locker room. He kind of backtracked. The staff said, listen, Justin Fields is not a finger pointer, but how much harm, in your opinion, was done by his original statement?
I don't know if it's like harm from the statement, but it's a mess, right? And it's like every single, like from top down in that organization. I watched the Ryan Poles press conference. It comes like Tyreek Stevenson, their rookie corner, says Matt Eberflus hasn't addressed them about their defensive coordinator. I think everyone in that organization looks horrible. But with Fields, like, here's where, like, and I've said it on like some of the last couple of shows, with Robert on Monday, and me and you, Rose, talked about, where I was like, I don't think they're doing him any favors, despite the fact that he is a big part of the issue. Here's the reason why the coaching isn't doing him any favors. Because he passes up open throws. Because he is one of the worst quarterbacks when you just put him in a drop back passer. That's why. That's why because the coaching needs to put together an offense that is a baby offense that allows you to just use your legs. So for Fields, I would be so frustrated if I was his coach, even if I had my own issues, that, hey, we're going through the tape and you're screwing this up. And you come out and say, oh, well, the coaching has me robotic. No, they're asking you to just operate a regular drop back passing offense and hit open players. this was this summer of Fields where the hype was crazy because of the legs. And hey, I do think he should use his legs more because that's what he's the best at. But until he can operate at least the basics of a drop back passing offense, he's not going to be a good quarterback. And I don't think he's going to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
So there's two big components here. One is the locker room, right? I mean, as a quarterback, you have to be the leader. There are so few quarterbacks that don't have a C on their chest, right? I haven't done a poll to figure out which guy is not the captain, but I would say virtually every starting quarterback is the captain of a team. And I just wonder how it always plays in a locker room. That's the number one thing. Like, I don't care how that plays in the media in Chicago. I don't care how it plays nationally. I don't care what all the pundits are saying about stuff. I care about what those 53 dudes, how they look at Justin Fields. What he did was he said something that he was thinking, and you can't always do that, right? We, in the media world, we love people that say whatever is on the top of their mind. He's not allowed to say what he said. I mean, he's allowed to, but man, it just throws everything into a tizzy. Don't you agree?
Oh, I agree. And if you don't think that the front office who didn't draft him thinks the exact same thing, you're out of your mind. So if Ryan Poles, their GM, is kept for year 3, do you think he's gonna put his reputation, like his career, on the line for Justin Fields? No, he's gonna restart the quarterback clock because they're gonna be high up. Like it's essentially a guarantee unless Fields just totally turns this season around. But I also thought, I don't know if you watched the Ryan Poles press conference. One, he gave us his statement starting saying, I don't have any information on Alan Williams. So what are you talking about after week 2 for? We're not panicked, which definitely says we're panicked after week 2. And then says Fields is not a finger. Basically, like having Twitter arguments after 2 weeks in the season and then answer questions for like 3 minutes. I don't think what he's done has inspired anyone to think he's some great GM. I mean, you traded the 30. I mean, the pick for DJ Moore in the first round picks was awesome, but hey, that was because they had the worst record in the NFL, so they were able to pull that off with a Panthers team that was hungry to do it. And then, like, again, they haven't, like, their head coach hasn't told their defense anything on like hasn't even addressed it. I think it's just a total mess over at Hallis Hall.
Again. So here's the reality. Justin Fields, 5-22 as a starter, sub 60% completion, almost a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. They've lost, oh, by the way, 12 in a row. Let's play a little trivia. How many Chicago Bears quarterbacks have made the Pro Bowl in the Super Bowl era?
I know Trubisky did because I was at that Pro Bowl in the rain, 50-degree weather in Orlando. Shout out.
Yes, he was like the 5th backup that was all these guys pulled out, so he made it. Yes,
that 2018 Bears season was fun.
Yes.
I'm gonna say 1. I think it's just Trubisky.
Come on, you're shortchanging Jim McMahon in 1985.
Well, I thought maybe Jim McMahon didn't make it to the Pro Bowl though. I thought that was the trivia part of it. It's just 1. It's only Trubisky.
That's in nearly 60 years. They have had 2, I will repeat, 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks. This organization cannot get out of its own way. They're going to be drafting another one next year. Justin Fields won't be a part of the program. I mean, I don't even think he hangs around. Why would you do that? If you're going to draft a young quarterback, why would you have a guy who was just a first-round pick hanging out here? I mean, it's the second straight time they're going to have a high first-round pick on a quarterback that they're not even going to exercise a 5th-year option on. That's dreadful.
Oh yeah, like if Fields turns this around, this is like a miraculous turnaround for a quarterback. Because again, the rushing ability is awesome, right? And I do think he needs to get quicker to that. But the reason for that shouldn't be, well, I can't see the defense well, so I'm gonna run. It should be like, hey, when stuff isn't covered up, run. Right? Like, use your legs, make them a weapon. But if the legs are just, hey, I don't read defense as well, so I got to run more. That's not the defense of a quarterback that you think it is.
All right, just give me a yes or no. As long as he's healthy, Justin Fields is the starting quarterback for the entire season.
I'm gonna just say yes, but that's tougher than you think, man, because they will pull the plug on his ass. I have no doubt that they. I would not be not no doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if they do that. This seems like a very weird front office.
It is a weird one, but I think if Nathan Peterman is your next best option, isn't that
Well,
right?
he's not even their QB2. It's Tyler Bagent.
Badgett is
this rookie they
Bagent.
had.
Yeah. The arm wrestling guy's son. Yeah, right. Forgot about him. Okay, let's move on to a pair of playoff teams that are winless. They meet in Minnesota this weekend. Chargers and Vikings. Loser leave town. Is it over for the squad that falls to 0-3?
I mean, you think so, right? Like, especially if it's the Chargers, they have the Raiders, Cowboys, and Chiefs in the next 3 games. Yeah, I think so. Which team? I think the Chargers are a better team, right? Because the Vikings kind of we talked about it last week, where the Vikings took an approach of not really trying to get better this offseason. In fact, they actively got worse. I mean, this is a much bigger game for the Chargers than it is the Vikings. Because if the Chargers lose this game, like, Staley's out of there. And it's like, okay, you just signed Kellen Moore. And the offense has been fine with LA. Not anything special, but they've been solid. It's just defensively they have not been able to get out of their own way. So, like, I have a hard time getting a read on either of these teams. But I do think I think the Vikings are going to put up a lot of points. So maybe they end up getting this win. But when picking this game, I just went, like, you know what, the Chargers are more talented across the board. I'm going Chargers.
Okay, so here's the good news. Both teams started 0-2 last year and made the playoffs. Okay, that's a good deal. But I'm going to throw this at you. Since 19...
Wait, they did? I thought the Vikings beat the Packers week 1.
Oh, they did. All right, so the Chargers. Is it the Chargers or is my research off? Maybe I was drunk last night, and so strike that from the record, Your Honor. This one I did check, okay? Since 1990, just 4 teams out of 158 that started 0-3 made the playoffs. We use 1990 because that's when they started having 6 teams. We now have 7 teams per conference that make it. So that's 2.5% of the time. If you start 0-3, you'll have a chance to make it. Basically, it's not happening. If you start 1-2, that improves to 25%. That is a monumental leap. You feel way better. You don't feel great at 1-2, but at least you feel good. Now, you mentioned it. The Chargers defense has been horrible. They've given up the most yards, the 3rd most points. They even let freaking Tennessee come back from a double-digit deficit. You know how hard that is to do?
Yeah, and Tennessee looked horrible week 1. They look like the worst team in the league week 1.
Right. So I got more stats for you if you like this. Chargers are the first team in NFL history to start 0-2, even though they have yet to turn over the ball and have scored at least 50 points. So that means that they haven't really done a ton wrong on offense. They have a shitty overtime series against Tennessee. You know, they end up losing to Miami late. You know, when they need big drives, they're maybe not getting them. But we're not talking about they're turning the ball over on their own 17 and giving the other team a short field. That's going to happen at some point. And this will be an unmitigated disaster if they fall to 0-3. If they fall to 0-3 after paying their quarterback big time and having a ton of talent around, what the heck, you know, Austin Eckler, who knows if he's going to play, still has that bad ankle. You're right about Minnesota. They're moving on from Kirk Cousins. They slowly got rid of a lot of decent talent in the offseason that could have helped them. They're building for something big. Chargers, it's supposed to be now.
Yeah, and if the Chargers win this game, like, if you look at the picture, like, the Chargers should make the playoffs, right? Like, you have the Dolphins, they're going to make it, right? The Bills, they're going to make it. The Chiefs, they're going to make it. One of the AFC North teams will make it. The Ravens are 2-0. You have one, and then you have 2 more spots after that. Where are you going with those last 2 spots? I think one of the other AFC North teams makes it, and then it's like the Chargers and the 3rd team in the AFC North.
Yeah, I think that's the way it probably feels right now. But there's only 2 undefeated teams in the entire AFC through, you know.
Yeah, Dolphins and Ravens
through 2 weeks.
It's like the Chargers, if you win this game, like, your season can get back on track.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you beat one of Dallas or Kansas City, and you're kind of, you know, then you're 3-2 and you're feeling good about this team. So the Chargers, Staley had he got a little testy with the media after, and hopefully there's no panic in there, because they really had, like, hey, win this game and the season is fine. Like, get back on track. right? Like if you like, there should not be panic within the Chargers. Like you said, they've been fine offensively, but you have enough good players on defense to not be doing like giving up what they're giving, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you have the pass. I know Mack isn't the same guy he once was, but he's still really good. You have Bosa, Derwin James. Like they have talent on that defense where they shouldn't be in that spot.
Yeah, they're horrible. And oh, by the way, Brandon Staley, defensive head coach. All right, 7 NFC teams are still unbeaten. Bigger prove it to me game for 2-0 Washington, which plays host to Buffalo, or 2-0 at Atlanta at Detroit.
Well, my question for you would be, what are these two teams trying to prove individually?
I think they're trying to prove to themselves. I have a clear answer on this one. So if you want me to, I'll start even.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's Washington, and to me, it's not even close. Atlanta is, I think we all thought that Atlanta, depending on how Ritter develops this year, would have a shot because they did add some talent. They added a lot of veteran presence, particularly on the defensive side of the football, and they are in a terrible, terrible division. So just
3-2-0 teams.
They're still, come on.
Isn't that hilarious? Like, I don't think you feel confident about any of those teams, and they're still 2-0.
Right, but they are, wouldn't we admit, like, if we're ranking divisions, this is probably as bad as it gets. Maybe the AFC South.
Oh, well, I mean, definitely in the NFC, which is why it's so funny that they have 3-2-0 teams.
Right.
Well, now if the Commanders beat the Bills, obviously it's huge for them. But why I would pick the Falcons is because if the Commanders lose to the Bills, I don't lose any respect for what they've done so far this season. And also the Commanders are in a situation like we were talking about the Giants before the season, is there's two teams in their division that are going to be clearly better than them with Dallas and Philly. Where the Falcons, I feel like if they win this game, like the Detroit's a solid team. So, and they beat the Chiefs in week 1. They lost to the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a solid team too. So if the Falcons are able to win this game, it's like I think they are the like clear division front runner in that division, because the other guys that haven't really beaten, they beat the Saints, beat the Panthers, and then the Titans, who both look horrible in those games, and then the Bucks. I got to take the Bucks a little more serious, I guess, with their Baker magic, but I think Falcons have more to prove because they have the more winnable game.
They do. That's why I'm looking at Washington. If they get off to a 3-0 start, that would be really impressive. I know week 1 it was a mess against Arizona, and then they came back from an 18-point deficit on the road against winless Denver. But I think probably one of the most underappreciated units in all of football is the Commanders' defense. Since the start of last year, they are top. They're 8th in points allowed. They're 2nd in yards allowed. They're number 1 in getting off the field on 3rd down, and they're 7th in sacks. This is a team that is really good defensively. Sam Howell is intriguing at the very least. I think he's interesting, don't you?
He reminds me of Baker. Like, I know that's the take that everyone said, but he creates sacks. He can throw a nice ball here and there. I mean, Commanders have talent in good positions, right? Like that defensive line is very good. Mm-hmm. The wide receiver trio is really nice. And I need to watch them more closely because I want to see what the stuff that Bieniemy is doing with them to make them successful. But I just like the Falcons. Like the Falcons are kind of my love child this year.
Yeah, they're fun.
And I want to see them beat the Lions.
Last time Washington started off 3-0. Want to give a guess?
I'll say when did Gibbs come back? I'll say 2006.
You're close. Oh, you just overshot the runway a bit. 2005. And who was their quarterback?
That wasn't Jason Campbell, was it?
He was on the roster.
Then that means it was at that. So that's after Patrick Ramsey. I don't know who. Oh, Mark Brunell. Easy.
Mark Brunell is correct. There you go.
Was that Joe Gibbs?
I believe it was Joe Gibbs.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think they made the playoffs that year and everything. So interesting. All right, last thing. Bummer. Season, a lot of big names lost for the season already. Cowboys will be without their Pro Bowl corner, Trevon Diggs, rest of the season, towards ACL in practice. Stinks. How much does this put a damper on their Super Bowl aspirations?
I think it's a pretty big deal for them, right? I know Diggs kind of was like a joke, like a online joke because he gave up so many yards, but he created big plays. But he had improved a lot from that All Pro season he had, where he gave up all, he had 10 interceptions, and he was balling this year. I mean, here's his advanced stats, Chris. He gave up 2 catches on 8 targets for 26 yards when targeting him. 24 of those 26 yards were an Isaiah Hodgins catch where Trevon Diggs forced a fumble. He had already had an interception.
Right.
When matched up with Garrett Wilson, he was 0 for 3 against him. And we know, and he embodies what that Dallas defense does, which is like, we're playing aggressive. We may give up a play here and there, but we're coming at you, and we're going to cause havoc. We are a havoc causing defense, and Diggs was a huge part of that. And I think he's like really established himself as one of the best, corners in the game. And anytime you lose that, like that's a huge worry. And I don't know if they have the depth that they are built for. Like having Stephon Gilmore there is nice, but Gilmore's not the same guy he once was, right? Like the Jets actually did pretty well versus him. 107 of Zach Wilson's 170 yards came against Gilmore. The Garrett Wilson big play happened against Gilmore, despite that Gilmore did get an interception too. But it's Gilmore's not my word. It's who's the second guy after Gilmore.
It's a fair question. So Trevon Diggs came into the league in 2020. Since then, he has missed 5 games. And in those 5 games, Dallas has gone 3-2, but they give up an average of 5 points per game more without him. If you're just into counting stats, just the simple stuff, the interceptions, passes, defense, he is tied for first in interceptions since he came in the league. He is second in the league in passes, defense. And if you look at their schedule coming up, they're going to be fine. They're going to make the playoffs. That's not a problem. But in 2 weeks, they've got San Francisco. They've got the Chargers ahead. They've got 2 with the Eagles. They've got Detroit, Miami, Seattle, Buffalo. These are all teams that can throw the ball pretty well. Even Washington twice. We just talked about them and their wide receiver core. It's a lot of firepower they're going to be facing, and I don't think that they have answers.
No. Luckily for them, they have the pass rush to cause enough havoc. But again, we are talking about a team that has higher standards, where when you're playing San Fran, when you're playing Philadelphia, where are you? So after, they've had about as good first 2 weeks as you can have. Do you have them above San Fran or Philly? Philly's had a little bit of a bumpy start despite being 2-0.
No, but even if Diggs was still playing, I wouldn't have them above it yet. Now, they're going to be fine this weekend. They've got a homecoming game. I think they're on the road against Arizona, aren't they? But they own that place. They always take over that place.
Oh, yeah. I remember the Cardinals, I don't know if they still do it, but they used to, like, if you bought a ticket for the Cowboys game, you had to buy a ticket for another game, too.
Smart. Good business. Can't hate them for that one. There's actually not a ton of great games on the schedule this weekend, but things always shake down. Like after week 3, you start to look at some things and some trends, and you can start to formulate like what a team is all about. Although I have heard that because of kind of a relaxed preseason schedule, that like week 3 is where it starts to kick in. Like the offense starts to knock off some of the rust because the defenses just feel way more ahead. And then that's where we are in week 3. But we'll all be glued to the set because we're watching it record numbers.
I love it. So yeah, but I do think Diggs is a pretty damn big loss for Dallas. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to have a Sunday with some stress-free, no Giants football.
Okay, it'll be the complete opposite for me as I continue to call the Browns game. This one in Cleveland against Northeast Ohio native Mike Vrabel and his Tennessee Titans. We are back at it again on Monday, so enjoy your football weekend. Enjoy your Sunday, however you consume your NFL product. For Bobby Skinner, check out all his work on Talking Giants. I am Chris Rose, and for our producer Mikey, shout out to you as well. We will see you Monday on Football Today.